Gavin Newsom, governor of California, a family man, and currently the single Democrat fighting back against Trump the hardest. And because of that, many believe Gavin Newsom has one of the best chances to become the next US president. But does he really? It's not like Gavin Newsom has no political baggage. Are his current efforts really enough to outweigh his past mistakes? Every now and then, us alternate history YouTubers have to dabble with some future predictions. That's just how things are. I promise though that I won't turn insane.
You don't understand how much I love God, both Yahweh and Odin, for healing my PTSD.
I plan to do more of these, so if you like this sort of stuff, consider subscribing. Now, I'll give you a very brief summary of who Gavin Newsom even is, and then I'll cover arguments why he might and might not win, before we go over very controversial wildcard arguments and come to a final prediction. Also, just as a heads up, this video will get pretty dark by the end, so stay tuned for that. Before becoming governor, Gavin Newsom was the mayor of San Francisco, later held the office of lieutenant governor, and during that time had his own TV show, The Gavin Newsom Show. Today, he trolls Trump on Twitter. The TV star turned internet troll is actually known for progressive causes such as same-sex marriage, gun safety, abortion rights and universal healthcare. That alone makes him a staunch contrast to Trump, and many analysts predict that by 2028 America will want a leader that's drastically different than Trump. You know, the whole pendulum swinging back to the left analogy. That alone gives Gavin Newsom a decent chance, but it's by far not the biggest ace in his sleeve and definitely not enough to predict that he will be the next president. So, what are the strongest arguments for a future Gavin Newsom presidency? Why again are people whispering about Gavin Newsom being the next president? The answer is simple. Donald Trump is currently not doing very well. The economy, Epstein, his authoritarian tendencies, his health, all that hurt Trump's popularity. In fact, the largest protests, in terms of numbers, in American history were against Trump specifically. That alone will make it difficult for any Republican associated with Trump to win the next election. Assuming, of course, the next election is even fair, or there even is an election. But the Democrats are also pretty unpopular, largely because they're seen as weak. People want Democrats to fight back against Trump, and they want them to fight dirty, to go as low as necessary to defy Trump. So inherently, every Democrat that fights back will get cheered on, and that inevitably leads to 2028 predictions. When Cory Booker held his record-long speech in the Senate, people cheered. When Van Hollen visited Abrego Garcia in El Salvador, people cheered. And of course, at every anti-oligarchy rally AOC and Bernie hold, people cheer. But all the Democrats I just mentioned have one thing in common. They don't have the power to truly fight back against Trump. And as governor of California, Gavin Newsom has that power. No other person is in a stronger position to defy and fight back against Trump, and that is the single biggest argument in favor of him. Gavin Newsom has realized what power he currently holds, and he's using it. Ever since the Texas redistricting scandal in July 2025, Gavin has been on fire. He signed the Election Rigging Response Act that would nullify any gains Republicans make in Texas. Of course, Trump has attacked Newsom for this, and then Gavin played another ace in his sleeve. He began trolling Trump online by imitating his style of tweeting. That was a golden move. So far, that strategy has worked well against Trump and skyrocketed Gavin Newsom's popularity. Assuming he doesn't completely blunder the high of this campaign, it's hard to see why he wouldn't be a strong 2028 contender. On Pollmarket, for example, he has the second highest percentages, only being behind JD Vance, and his numbers are only rising. Gavin Newsom is by far the leading Democrat for 2028 bets, but the Republicans, whoever their candidate may be, still have over 3 years left to fight against Newsom, and that fight is not gonna be pretty. I think there are two very strong arguments against Gavin Newsom winning. The first is your typical argument you might find on a CNN or MSNBC political debate around. The second argument is far more controversial and unconventional, but I full-heartedly believe it's the single best argument against Gavin Newsom 2028. The first main argument is that Gavin Newsom simply isn't progressive enough. He's too close to the center. It's simple really. Throughout America's history, whenever one side controlled the White House and things didn't work out, people went the other way. Basically the whole pendulum argument again. Bush Jr. was followed by Obama. Obama was followed by Trump. The Democrats tried their best to cling on to the Clinton-Obama neoliberal era and selected Biden as their 2020 candidate. But that era was long gone.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare,
Biden was just the final breath of a dying neoliberalism. And now Trump is back in office, more radical than ever. Many Americans are fed up with both the far right flirting with fascism and the old neoliberal ways. But luckily for them, these aren't the only two political options. Just how the Republicans went further to the right, the Democrats could go further to the left. And that shift has already begun. AOC and Bernie are drawing massive crowds with the anti-oligarchy rallies, and Zoran Mamdani is about to be the next mayor of New York. Gavin Newsom doesn't really fit into that trajectory. Sure, he has passed some progressive policies, but at the end of the day, he is an establishment Democrat. He has massive corporate donors, is cozy with tech giants, has approved oil drilling permits, has failed to tackle California's homelessness crisis despite the state's wealth, and there's of course this.
The right is right and you are right.
It's hard to believe actual progressives will rally behind someone who is willing to hear out people like Steve Bannon. If we believe those political trends, by 2028 the Democrats will need to put up an actual progressive as their candidate, not just a showman. But I don't think that's the best argument against Gavin Newsom winning. So far, I've presented arguments that assume the 2028 election will just be another election as usual. But it's hard to believe that that will be the case. It's 2025 and Republicans have already put in efforts to rig the midterms. Remember that Texas redistricting thingy? And somehow everyone seems to forget that Donald Trump didn't accept the 2020 election result. Why would he, or God forbid JD Vance, accept them in 2028? Back then, nobody was on Trump's side except his loyal supporters. Now Trump has his own loyal military group that is patrolling the streets and rounding up innocent civilians. You really think ICE is gonna just let people vote like usual, even if they know a blue wave is incoming? Steve Bannon, Trump's former chief strategist, certainly doesn't think so.
They're going to be, since we're taking control of the cities, there's going to be ICE officers near polling places. You damn right.
So, my main argument against Gavin Newsom being the next president is that even if he wins, why would the Republicans accept that result? They are moving all the pieces in place to just stay in power. Why else would Trump sell 2028 merch and straight up show it to world leaders visiting the White House? Even if Trump doesn't finish his term, it's not like JD Vance will be any different. But that very dystopian argument is not the only one that I have. It's time for my actual prediction. Is Gavin Newsom the next US president? Back in March, I uploaded a video that tried to answer if the US will have a civil war before 2030. Back then I estimated the chance of civil war to be around 55%. And that was before Trump sent National Guard units to DC and LA. Everything Trump and the Republicans have been up to since I uploaded that video only confirmed my suspicions. Now, one can certainly make the argument that that would actually be good for Gavin Newsom's chances. If the US in fact experiences a civil conflict, Gavin Newsom is in a very strong position to be a leading figure. Based on his Texas redistricting response, I think he is at least somewhat willing to lead a charge for democracy. Like I said in the beginning of the video, he simply is in the best position to fight back. So, does that mean I think he is the next president? No, I don't think Gavin Newsom is the next US president. But why not? I've established pretty much 3 things in this video. 1. Gavin Newsom is in an ideal spot to fight back. 2. The Democrats will likely experience a progressive wave. 3. I think the US will have a civil war or some sort of similar power struggle, and when that last part happens, will be decisive to who will lead the country. If the conflict happens soon, let's say after the 2026 midterms, Gavin Newsom is in the prime spot. But it's hard to believe that a rigged midterm election will drive America to the brink. I think it's far more likely that the Republicans rigging or refusing to concede the 2028 election will be the igniting spark. And by that point, the Democrats will already have chosen their leader, someone more progressive than Gavin Newsom with less political baggage. Now, if the Democrats would even win that power struggle is a topic for a whole other video. But almost every path I take down this future prediction lane, Gavin Newsom doesn't become the next president. I simply don't think that he is progressive enough to win the 2028 Democratic primaries. Now I know my whole talk about civil war sounds very dystopian. I'm not saying it will happen, or God forbid, I'm hoping it would happen. To clarify, I hope the 2028 election happens without any violence. If I had to put a number on the likelihood of a civil war, I'd say it's around 60%, 5% higher than the last time I talked about it. Since, well, now there are National Guard troops in DC and Trump is about to declare war on Chicago. There are still several peaceful paths left, and only time will tell which way the United States of America goes. I know this whole video probably made me sound like some other guy, but I swear to God, I'm not schizophrenic, nor have I taken psychedelics. Of course, I could be completely off, only time will tell. And I honestly hope that by 2028 I look like a fool. Either way, I hope you found this short but dystopian future prediction interesting. If you did, please consider subscribing. I plan to make more videos like this one in the future about other political candidates, ranging from obvious picks like JD Vance or AOC to more wildcards like Tucker Carlson or even Trump himself. Now, if you found my whole talking point about the US experiencing a civil war shaky, I recommend you check out my video about that prediction. In it, I explain my reasoning, and so far, it holds up pretty well. And last, but certainly not least, a special thanks to the legends who support me on Patreon.